Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Win Daily Sports Show. My name is Michael Rasile, and I have an incredible guest today. I am speaking with Kelly Oubre Sr. You might know of his son. He's doing some cool stuff in the NBA. Very excited to talk about Kelly and his story, obviously everything he's got going on with his son, and a new book that's going to be coming out soon. Kelly Oubre, how you doing today, man?
Fine, Mike. Thanks for having me, man. My pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine, man. I'm 1 degree away from your son. I mean, also makes me 1 degree away from Steph Curry. I'm not angry about that either. So we got some cool stuff going on. But no,
Yeah.
very excited to chat with you. Obviously, a couple of the things we talked about your son a little bit already. President of Beast Developmental. Excited to talk
Sir.
to you about your business a little bit, and as well as you got that book coming out. So that'll be a lot of fun too. But Kelly, the first question I have for everybody, and I believe you're going to have a really, really great answer about this. I want to know what your win daily mindset is. How do you go into every day and make sure that you're putting a W in the win column?
Well, it starts early morning when I wake up. I look at every day like another day to paint another masterpiece because I have a blank canvas. I'm going to win. That's a given. Now, how many wins I collect during the course of the day, that's yet to be determined, but I will win. And I'll try to do it as honestly and and peacefully as possible because I have a blueprint that goes into my wins every day. As I wake up, I realize that from where I came doesn't determine where I'm going, but in this moment right now, it can help fortify and build on the foundation that I've laid in the past. So a win is guaranteed for me every day. Now, like I said, how big that win is or how small it is, if I can look back when I lay my head down and I realize that I made effective change in the life of either myself, someone I touched during the course of the day, or um, pretty much someone who just needed a kind word, then that is chalked up in my mind as a win. There's nothing wrong with being nice. Sometimes we all struggle with that in our daily comings and goings because of the weight of the world is on our backs. But I think when you say the word win, we have to put that in proper context and just look at it as a given or a must and not as an option.
I love that. And how do you define a win? I think that part is a pretty important piece of the conversation too, right? Because a win is different to everybody. And I feel like you are you hold yourself to high regard, but as you said, because it's a must. So how do you define a win and make sure that you did at least what you needed to do?
A win is finding growth in the day, morning, noon, and night. Finding constant growth. If I can feel like I'm on an elevated plane, just finding footing on an elevated plane from where I started, that constitutes a win for me. Looking at a win in context of, from a personal standpoint, the best definition I could give is being better 5 minutes from now than I was 5 minutes ago. That is a win.
I love it. 1% better every single day. You'll be pretty damn good by the end of the year. So I completely agree with that. I try and live by the exact same mindset. I do my best. Some days, of course, we fall off, but just get right back on the horse and keep doing why you keep going. So one thing that I'm very curious about, I mean, your son, Kelly Oubre Jr., obviously in the NBA, playing on the Warriors right now, is top 1.001% of all athletes on planet Earth, in my opinion. You make it to the NBA, you're doing some cool stuff. What was it about you? What is it about him that has allowed him to get to that point? Because again, there are so many people. Everybody plays basketball growing up, but only a couple people make it to the NBA. What do you think it's about your son that has led to him becoming one of the best athletes on planet Earth?
Well, what you could do between the 0.001% and 0.003% is find a happy medium in between where people look at that as hope. I got a shot. I can do this. But far too many times, the groundwork of the foundation hadn't been laid, or those hardships may have not hit just right. Because I think a lot of that goes into what we call the gumbo pot in New Orleans, where we're from, and it's a combination of a lot of things. I think a lot of it is the willingness to want to persevere at all costs, manufacturing your hunger when there is not any there, and giving yourself a reason as a young ball player, or like myself, his trusted advisor, to be there to advise him and other athletes and parents, and just being humble enough to realize that you can't do it alone. And trusting in someone, hopefully it's the right person you're trusting at the earliest possible age to hold your hand as you're guided through the process, or as you guys walk through the process together, so you both can see the value. And it's not just that athlete standing alone at the end of the race saying, look what I've done. Because what happens is, let's look at it in terms of a boat. You know, as a boat sits in the harbor long enough, barnacles get caught on the bottom of it. No one knows how barnacles get caught there, but at the end of the day, the ship captain is always complaining about the weight of the boat being affected by things that are non-productive. It slows down speed. It slows down. It affects its buoyancy, and it could eventually lead to a catastrophe if not governed or cleaned off. I look at that like a young athlete. A young athlete, or a young diamond, as I refer to them, they can pick up baggage along the way. And a lot of times it might be negative baggage by way of what we call justifiers. And as what I call myself a clarifier, I'm there to help navigate him through those rough patches, but at the same time, to fend off those justifiers who are just hanging on like barnacles for dear life, trying to show some value when they're really just, they're not helping with a smooth sail, but they don't realize that, or maybe they do, they just don't care.
I like that a lot, because there's a lot of people, a lot of terrible people on the internet that once they get behind a keyboard, it's really easy for them to say anything that they want. But say it to someone's face, it becomes a little bit more difficult. So it's good to have you a part of the journey to allow people to understand what is real and what is kind of fantasy world, right? And I think that part's pretty important. So I want to talk about your story a little bit some more. You know, obviously your son has made it to this point. It's absolutely incredible, but I know your story is pretty impactful as well. Being a single father, relocating after Hurricane Katrina. Talk to me a little bit about some of the stuff that you've done along the way to, again, aid and help your son get to, again, this incredible point of being in the NBA.
Well, I had to be humble, and I had to make a lot of sacrifices. I didn't consider them gut-wrenching sacrifices because they came easy to me because I was willing to do whatever it took. Now, with that being said, as I look back on the process and the journey, I look at me reinventing myself 4 or 5 times along the way also. Can't be scared to do that as a trusted advisor, as a parent. Can't be scared to do it. It's just, it has to be, once again, back to when you asked me about what a win was. That's part of the win. And I think as we talk on this, have this conversation, all of this ties into what a win really is. But each individual has to determine what the win in their life is going to be, short, medium, and long term. And looking at it and understanding it to be a constant sacrifice, a constant journey, a marathon, not a sprint. Along the way, I realized that I met some very interesting people, and I went through some very interesting times. I don't want to call them good or bad, because I think they all played a part in the successes that my son has now, and the successes that I can be a part of in his life as we move forward. So, inner city New Orleans, I grew up, spent a couple of years in Birmingham, Alabama, in elementary. Went back to New Orleans, went back to Birmingham for 9th and 10th grade high school. 2 worlds, 2 opposite worlds. Private high school in Alabama, public school system in New Orleans. I learned that, give you a little nugget about it, I learned that in Alabama, strangely enough, the culture was a lot different, but people had a tendency to introduce themselves by their whole names. Whereas in New Orleans, people just introduce themselves by their first name. And in the back of my mind, even back in high school, it says, well, from now on, I'm going to introduce myself by my whole name. And I told Kelly to do the same thing when he came to be, because it's a personal branding, if you will. You're leaving an indelible impression on the minds of everybody you meet that this is who I am, my first and last name, not just one name that might get lost in the sauce or confused with somebody else by the same name. It's highly unlikely that you're going to walk into the room, if he and I aren't together, that you're going to run into 2 more Kelly Oubres. So I tell it to my young diamonds that after my high school experiences in New Orleans, I did some college, kind of, didn't have the money. I was a marginal basketball player, but I think it was more of a mental a hiccup that I had than a physical, because I was course, I was aggressive. I was a lot of things that you see on the court with Kelly right now. It's just that my mental aspect, my focus was not there for financial reasons. And quite frankly, I didn't have a trusted advisor to educate me and help me walk the process to see what to look out for or to be a mouthpiece along the way in situations in which I had no words. I grew up with a great group of guys, and I watched them go on to bigger and better things. And you know what's funny? It climbed out towards the middle, and I ascended towards the end. And they're still great guys, but I want to just let it be known that perseverance this far, it wasn't a one-off encounter or a phone call. It was a perseverance, the digging into the situation, no matter how good or bad it was, and understanding that there will be a brighter day if we just keep working. And I think that played a big part of my transitional approach when it came to raising Kelly, because I had already accumulated so many wins. I even learned how to turn the L's into wins. And doing that, it gave me the talk track along with my Gab to convey the messages to him in real time and have anecdotes to go along with it, not from what I heard, but from what I lived. So, just to put it in context, I can't get that word win on because every day I win and every day I'm going to win because every day I have won. So people around me say, well, no, I remember when you lost. I remember when you lost 10 times. Do you really remember when I lost, though? Because I'm smiling right now.
And that's all that matters, man. As long as you
In
know
that moment, maybe you look at it that way.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Like as long as you know that you have those wins inside you, and they're gonna keep coming. Whether you can lose for a second, but then you'll be back onto the winning track. And as you said, as you keep turning the L's to W's, and you keep on smiling, nobody can do nothing to you. And it seems like you're very much of that mindset, and I love it. I'm glad you keep bringing win up because we're all about winning over here. We are all about winning over here. So, Kelly, I want to talk to you a little bit more. I know you also, during your story, you also after Hurricane Katrina ended up relocating to help Kelly Jr. and put him in better situations. Tell me a little bit about what that was like, and how much of a strain that was on just your entire family.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Uh-oh. Maybe he can't hear us.
Okay, good. All right. Yeah. The transition, well, it was not by our hand, Katrina. And once I got there, I looked around. I saw the opportunity. I saw a bunch of good people living life. That's something I'd always longed for with Kelly. Growing up in New Orleans, I was a UPS driver at the time. He is there, great company. But I had the benefited from something where drivers, and I followed suit. Roughly, happened. Needless to say, benefited too, because once I got Houston, more class to go before I completed my degree in business management. So I had a decision to make at the time. Do I go back to UPS in New Orleans, or do I make my home in Houston, Texas, and basically UPS, and pursue other things? I didn't know what those other things were at the time, but you know what? Once again, out of this, and realized that that was one of those where I had to reinvent myself completely. I tore it all down. Okay. And I reinvented myself in that moment. I took a bunch of odd jobs. First job I took was I got my insurance license sold insurance, okay? Then the market crashed. Still wasn't a loss for me because I still was in a foreign place. Took a L to provide for Kelly, and we had to eat and have a roof over our head. Eventually, to get our win out of the way. Yellow page ads. I'm talking about a total reinvention, a total teardown. But what I got a chance to do is I got a chance to be dad and present every day. So the yellow book, yellow page ads, sold placards on shopping carts. I was doing whatever I could do to make a dollar, honestly. And being in a provider role, that's just as a parent, my parents know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to, not because you want to, not because it's an option. Did some other things. I worked for 2 years, so copier, which kind of benefited me for 2 years. But you know what? Once again, total reinvention into sales. Wasn't back in New Orleans before Katrina, before UPS, or I'm sorry, while at UPS, I worked at UPS part-time and W.W. Granger full-time, Industrial Equipment Corporation, and I was in sales. So throw that in there with a degree was old hat to me because I was just reinvigorating some of the sales acumen or some of the business acumen for pre-Katrina. So it may have looked strange on the surface, but once again, I got a chance to be daddy here. I just tapped into all my little resources, moving on. I was interested in getting into something that would give me summers off so I could either Kelly or be there as he needed me as he grew into the middle years. Me and him the whole time anyway, basically. Had gone through a couple of marriages along the way, but nobody saw the vision. Therefore, I never got out of the mindset of being a single father because he was my biological cannot be. And my parents did that because if it's not connected to you, it becomes easier to or not lock in totally to it because there's no consequence. It's almost like a shirt you can put on off, or a parent with a child that's biologically yours and you're trying to navigate and trying to pull out some normalcy in your own life. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. But the bottom line is you got to get that win out of the equation, okay? So as we segued into that, Kelly became bigger, better, faster, and stronger. Started playing a lot of summer ball, traveling all over the country. And I was there to help every step of the way, but I couldn't make all the trips with him. So he had to go it alone a lot of times. But by that time, he had already been used to us being out of our home state of Louisiana because it hardened him, but it put him in the rarefied air and surrounding guys he plays with in the league right now, a lot of them also. So I think that helped him a great deal. Seeing me work so hard and reinvent motivation to want to do the same in his own life, and at the same time realize that I wasn't going anywhere because if all those, how would I leave now as he gradually ascended up his ladder to success?
I think it's really cool.
Prep after 3 years of high school in Houston, Texas. Not so much so he could, but to put him in another part of the rarefied air I speak about, in which he could rub shoulders with competition on an international level. That's a different conversation when you talk about high school, the next level, which is college. Next year, he went to Kansas after he did a year at Findlay Prep for a year. Then he was drafted in the 2015 draft to the Washington Wizards. I think it all kind of tied in my life and I and his every step of the way.
And I think with that opportunity to be there, you know, and reinventing yourself multiple times and moving around the country and doing literally whatever it takes for your son to become successful when it's not a guarantee, right? Like obviously you probably knew, and many of his coaches were probably understanding like this kid clearly has some potential and it is incredible and we've seen it play out getting all the way to the NBA. But was there ever a worry on your side of maybe being a little overbearing, being a little too much on his side? Because I could almost see that, you know, from his point of view. I mean, hey, I was a teenager once, so were you. Sometimes you don't want your dad hanging around everywhere all the time, right? So I'm kind of curious, like, if you ever felt like that there was a line there, and if you know how you also respected his space while also understanding that you knew essentially what was best for him, and you would be willing to do whatever it took to get him to the best possible spot.
Well, the thing about that is I had to be, I couldn't be Jurassic in the process. I had to judge and gauge his personality. I couldn't be the heavy hand, be lenient at times. I had the nurturing quality about me. I had to be a provider. I had to wear many hats. And that's the biggest hat I'll ever wear, the most important one. So I was a tad bit overbearing, but at the time, I was able to explain to him or once again clarify why I was the way I was, because I could always refer that had propelled him and us to the situations that we were in and what he could look forward to in the future. So trust me, it wasn't really a hard sell or a sell job at all with him, because he understood why I was to succeed. So I think it all goes into that grad that he had to understand at an early age. He saw firsthand, and the constant attention I paid to him, especially when I was in his presence. But at the same time, I talked to him every day, text messages or conversations or face to face, and help him process the things he was seeing, of things that happened in the past that were positive, like his black belt he received at 8 years old, and how he could use that in those situations to build himself up or motivate himself when I wasn't around in the future. So was it his doing to be pushed to my doing? And strangely enough, I can't think of one day where Kelly said, "Daddy, I don't want to go to practice." And I mean that. I cannot literally think about a day in his life that he said, "Daddy, I do not want to go to practice." So whether it was me and him working out one-on-one or in a team setting, he always wanted to go. And towards his final years in Houston, Texas, he would go to neighboring school districts for open run. He would go to the Planet Fitness, the 24-hour fitness, the Lifetime Fitness to get open run when they didn't have practice on those days with his friends. So there, that 0.001%, 0.002%, 0.00. We're talking about guys who basically are operating like Ronan in whatever that looks like. Now, some people may not understand that because they may just be happy that they have an atlas. They're coming for your neck, buddy. So you might want to figure out what you want to do as early as possible. Be in a situation with some of these guys, because it's not by chance that they're 0.001%, 0.002%, 0.003%. They've earned the right to be so. And they're going to defend cost. As you can look at it on you watch. These guys are not average guys. So yeah, they have a lot of money. The but
It's it's absolutely incredible the amount of work that goes into it, right? So many people just think, well, these guys are 6'8", like of course it was bound to happen, but of course it absolutely matters how much work is being put in. And I like the story on you telling us that, hey, Kelly never said he didn't want to go to practice, so we went to practice every day. And
right.
I'm kind of curious. So you're in the process of writing a book right now. I'm absolutely very excited to get to check it out when it comes out. What are some of the
Yeah.
lessons, like you're drawing from so many different places, right? What you had to go
Yes.
through and reinventing yourself over and over and over again, watching your son ascend to greatness up to, being in the NBA and being a very good all-star potential level in the NBA. What are some of the life lessons in the book, and how have you been able to kind of start to grab from all these different areas that you've seen to put it into something that is digestible for others to learn from?
Well, I can talk for hours, and everyone's going to attest to that, no problem. And every time listen to me talk, is something new that comes out. That's what he tells me. I don't know sometimes, but that's just by him being in my inner circle. And I like it that way. And I would want to put that message into the universe to give those trusted advisors or those parents the sight and the sustainer young diamonds or their young athletes, because at some point there may become a separation when a young athlete needs that kind of supervision anymore. But the lessons that both go through the years leading up to the successful points will eventually bring an athlete back to center or back home to realize and appreciate the sacrifices or the lessons learned along the way by not only him or her, but also by the trusted advisor or the parent. So to bring the book home, I think my intent is to lay out the blueprint that we had and to encourage others to use our instances or some of the anecdotes to apply their own personal blueprint that with Beast Developmental they can create. We can help them, or alone if the sad part is a lot of parents feel like I'm creating these short windows of success at the highest level possible. And that parent who feels like they have time might translate the wrong message to the young diamonds. I feel like they have time also. And quite frankly, there is no time to be had once you develop the one itis that I did, to be in a position where a young athlete, a young diamond can be part of that 0.03%. So I think the book, the intent to educate parents along the way, trusted advisors, educate young diamonds along the way on how to respect everyone in the process, coaches, trainers, teachers, navigate the media as best you can. They have a job to do also. In our Twitter age, a lot of media personalities are running from Twitter because they can't type fast enough up with it. Doesn't mean they don't need to be questions, don't need to be clarified for you. A heartfelt answer or an answer that you give much thought to as a young diamond or a trusted advisor. Because fleshed out properly, that does not mean your answer cannot hit home and resonate in that moment to convey the message you send or put out there about yourself, about your situation, and about your life. So I want to cover all of that stuff in the book and give nuggets on how to navigate through the waters to success quite frankly, the current success you'll experience once you read the book, and success from that point forward as you ascend to higher heights of success. Because once again, as we alluded to, success and wins are what we, and they come from inside. And who, from where they start.
I love it. Well, I'm very excited to get through and check out the book. I think it is going to be absolutely incredible. But Kelly, in case this was absolutely fantastic, I sincerely appreciate your time listening to your story, some of the stuff you've done, obviously getting to discuss your son a little bit too. Where can everyone find you on the internet in case they're curious and want to link up with you and ask you some more questions?
Follow me on social media at beastdevelopmental.com. Anyone out there who has some trouble navigating, shoot me a question. Let me answer it for you. I try to do the operation going on over here, Googling every question you send to me, trying to get a politically correct answer. Shoot me a question, whether you're a young diamond or you're a trusted advisor or you're a coach or you're a trainer, whoever you are. If I have some value to bring to your life that day, to feel free to use me as a resource, and hopefully we can develop some kind of a talk track and some kind of friendship moving forward, where you realize that I operate with clean hands all the time, and I only ask that you do the same.
I love
Welcome
it.
to
Everybody, hell yeah. At Beast Development, make sure to go follow Kelly and ask him some questions. Kelly, this was absolutely fantastic. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your story, and I appreciate you helping everyone out there, man. Thank you so much.
Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. I appreciate you.